Good evening, and welcome to the Sleepless Library, where we explore powerful ideas and timeless books to help you relax, reflect, and drift into deep, restful sleep. Tonight we're summarizing Atomic Habits, a gentle but profound guide to changing your life, one small step at a time. It's a book about how tiny habits, stacked day after day, can reshape who you are and who you become. Before you wind down, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and if there's a favourite book you'd like us to explore, let us know in the comments. Now get comfortable, dim the lights, and let your mind slow down as we ease into tonight's journey. Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones, by James Clear. Part 1. The Fundamentals. Why Tiny Changes Make a Big Difference. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Imagine this. For nearly a century, British cycling was a joke. One gold medal since 1908. Not a single win at the Tour de France. They were so bad, bike companies didn't even want to be associated with them. Then in 2003, something changed. The team brought in a new performance director, Dave Brailsford, who had a very different philosophy. Something he called the aggregation of marginal gains. His idea was simple but powerful. Improve everything. Every tiny part of what you do is by just 1%. The saddle, the diet, the training routines, even how athletes wash their hands to avoid getting sick. Alone, each change was small. But together, they completely transformed the team. Within 5 years, British cyclists dominated the Olympics and took home multiple Tour de France victories. This story kicks off James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and it sets the tone for one big message. Small changes lead to big results, if you stick with them. Clear argues that the key to transformation isn't one big leap. It's the compound effect of many tiny actions. Think of habits like interest in a savings account. The return isn't obvious right away, but over time the gains can be massive. If you get just 1% better every day for a year, you'll be 37 times better by the end of it. The problem? Most of us don't stick with small habits long enough to see the payoff. We give up when progress feels slow. But Clear reminds us that outcomes are just the lagging results of your habits. Your fitness, your focus, your finances, they're all a reflection of the choices you've repeated over time. He also makes an important distinction. Goals are good, but systems are better. A goal is the result you want. Lose 20 pounds, write a novel, learn a language. But a system is the process you follow. Working out daily, writing 500 words a day, practicing for 15 minutes. You don't rise to the level of your goals, Clear says. You fall to the level of your systems. Another big idea, focus on identity, not outcomes. Instead of saying, I want to get fit, say, I'm the kind of person who doesn't miss workouts. Every habit you build is a vote for the type of person you want to become, and when your habits reinforce your identity, it becomes easier to keep going. Finally, Clear introduces the core framework behind habit formation, a 4-step loop: cue, craving, response, reward, and gives a teaser of the tools to come. The rest of the book shows how to build good habits and break bad ones using what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. So if you've ever struggled with change, not because you didn't want it, but because it never seemed to stick, Atomic Habits offers a new lens. Change your habits, change your systems, and over time, you'll change your life. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. Why is it so easy to fall back into bad habits, but so hard to stick to good ones? We've all felt it. You start strong. Maybe you meditate for a few days, go to the gym twice, or journal for a week. But then life happens. The motivation fades. And just like that, you're back to binge-watching shows or scrolling aimlessly on your phone. Change is hard because we often focus on the wrong thing or go about it the wrong way. Most people aim for outcomes, losing weight, saving money, writing a book, but real lasting change starts deeper. It starts with identity, with who you believe you are. Clear breaks this down into 3 layers of change like the layers of an onion. Outcomes, the results you want. Lose weight, write a book, save money. Processes, the actions you take. Going to the gym, writing daily, budgeting. Identity, your beliefs. I'm fit. I'm a writer. I'm disciplined. Most people start with the outcome and work inward, but Clear flips it. He says the most powerful and lasting change works from the inside out. Start with your identity. Think of it this way. Every time you choose to go for a run, you're casting a vote for the identity of being a runner. Every healthy meal is a vote for becoming someone who values wellness. The more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. And eventually it's no longer something you do, it's just who you are. Clear's key insight is this. Your habits are how you embody your identity. Want to become more confident? Act in ways that a confident person would. Want to be more focused? Show up like a focused person would. Identity isn't something you're born with. It's something you build choice by choice. He also explains why bad habits stick so easily. We often form them without realizing we're building an identity around them. I'm not a morning person. I'm terrible with money. These beliefs may start as offhand comments, but over time they solidify, and we begin to live them out. The good news, that cycle can work in your favor too. You can build a positive identity, one tiny action at a time. So instead of asking, what do I want to achieve, ask yourself, who do I want to become? And then, with every action, every habit, every decision, start casting votes for that version of yourself. Chapter 3. How to Build Better Habits. Let's rewind to 1898. A psychologist named Edward Thorndike puts a hungry cat in a box. The cat claws around, pokes its nose in the corners, and eventually, by accident, presses a lever that opens the door. On the other side, food. Now here's where it gets interesting. Each time Thorndike repeated the experiment, the cat figured out the trick a little faster. Over time, the behaviour that led to the reward, pressing the lever, became more automatic. That, in essence, is how habits form. James Clear introduces a 4-step framework for understanding how all habits work. It's a feedback loop that runs constantly in the background of our lives. Cue, the trigger that initiates the behaviour. Craving, the desire or motivation behind the habit. Response, the actual behaviour or action. Reward, the benefit you get that makes you want to do it again. This loop is how your brain learns what's worth remembering and repeating. Let's break that down. The cue is what grabs your attention. Maybe it's your phone buzzing. That creates a craving, the desire to feel connected or distracted, so you respond by picking up the phone and opening Instagram. And the reward is that little hit of dopamine from a funny reel or a like on your post. Do it enough times, and boom, you've got a habit. Clear emphasizes that these 4 steps are always present, whether it's a good habit, like working out, or a bad one, like stress eating. The key to mastering your habits is learning how to shape each part of this loop. He offers a powerful idea here. Behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. The cue is the problem you notice. The craving is your desire to solve it. The response is your chosen solution, and the reward is the solution working. It's not the habit itself you crave, it's the change in state. You don't crave brushing your teeth, you crave the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't crave checking email, you crave the relief of knowing you didn't miss something important. This framework becomes the foundation for building better habits. Each part of the loop can be tweaked to your advantage. Here's how Clear breaks it down. Cue, make it obvious. Craving, make it attractive. Response, make it easy. Reward, make it satisfying. Whether you want to start working out, write more, sleep better, or just stop doom scrolling, this simple loop gives you the blueprint. The secret isn't willpower or motivation. It's understanding how your brain is wired and using that to your advantage. Part 2, the first law, make it obvious. Chapter 4, the man who didn't look right. A woman walks into a family gathering. She's a paramedic, years of emergency calls under her belt. She takes one look at her father-in-law and says, "I don't like the way you look." He laughs it off, says he feels fine, but she insists he go to the hospital. Hours later, he's on the operating table having emergency surgery. Doctors discover a severe artery blockage. Without that instinct, that gut feeling, he might not have made it. So how did she know? She couldn't explain it. But years of experience had trained her brain to recognize subtle patterns, like the way blood distribution changes in the face right before a heart attack. Her intuition was really a finely tuned habit of perception. James Clear uses this story to introduce a big idea. Our brains are constantly picking up on cues, often without us realizing it. And these cues are what spark our habits. This is the beginning of the first law of behavior change. Make it obvious. If you want to change your habits, you need to start by becoming aware of them and the cues that trigger them. Habits are automatic. You see your phone, you pick it up, you walk into the kitchen, you grab a snack. These behaviors are often invisible to us because they're so ingrained. So the first step is simple. Make the invisible visible. Clear introduces a tool called a habit scorecard. It's exactly what it sounds like. You write down your daily habits, one by one, and mark whether each one is positive, negative, or neutral. Wake up, scroll Instagram. Maybe that's negative. Drink a glass of water. That's a win. The goal isn't to judge yourself, but to become aware of what you're doing on autopilot. Once you see the patterns, you can start changing them. But to do that, you need more than awareness. You need intention. That's where implementation intentions come in. It's a strategy backed by research. Instead of vaguely saying, "I'll work out more," you commit to a specific plan. I will work out at 6 p.m. in my living room for 30 minutes. Another powerful strategy is called habit stacking. You take a habit you already do and tack a new one onto it. For example, after I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 1 minute. The cue becomes the trigger for the new habit. At its core, this is about design. If you want better habits, don't rely on willpower. Shape your environment so the right choices are obvious and easy to make. If you want to read more, leave a book on your pillow. If you want to eat healthier, put fruit on the counter instead of cookies. Because here's the truth. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems, and those systems start with what we see, what we notice, and what we choose to respond to. Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit. In 2001, researchers in the UK ran a simple study with 248 people trying to build an exercise habit. They split participants into 3 groups. The first group just tracked their workouts. The second group tracked workouts and read motivational material about the benefits of exercise. The third group did the same, but also wrote down a sentence that began like this: "During the next week I will do 20 minutes of exercise on day at time in place." That one little sentence changed everything. While only about 35% of people in the first 2 groups worked out, 91% of the third group did. The difference: they didn't just want to exercise, they planned for it. It's a powerful example of what really gets habits to stick. Motivation is helpful, but it's not reliable. The real secret to consistency is clarity. When you know exactly when and where a habit will happen, you're far more likely to follow through. He introduces a tool called the implementation intention. It's a super specific plan that follows a simple formula: I will behaviour at time in location. Instead of saying I want to read more, say, I'll read 1 page at 8 p.m. in the bedroom. This kind of specificity takes the guesswork out of habit building. It removes ambiguity and removes excuses. Clear also expands on habit stacking, a method introduced earlier, and shows how combining it with implementation intentions makes habits even stickier. Here's how it works. After current habit, I will new habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You're using an existing habit as a cue to launch a new one. It's like chaining behaviours together. One leads naturally into the next. Over time, these links become a reliable routine. But there's one more layer that makes these strategies work even better: context. Your environment shapes your behaviour in subtle but powerful ways. If you want to stick to a habit, associate it with a consistent time and place. That way, your brain starts to expect the behaviour whenever you're in that situation. Eventually, the cue becomes automatic, and so does the habit. And remember, you don't need to start big. In fact, you shouldn't. The key is to make the habit so easy and obvious that skipping it feels harder than doing it. So next time you're trying to start something new, whether it's journaling, stretching, or drinking more water, don't just hope it happens. Decide when, decide where, and build it into your day. That's the difference between wanting change and actually making it. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. At a hospital in Boston, Dr. Anne Thorndike ran a quiet experiment. She didn't give a single motivational speech. She didn't hand out leaflets or tell people to make better choices. Instead, she simply moved things around. The hospital cafeteria used to have soda as the main drink option near the registers. Thorndike added bottled water to every fridge and placed baskets of water throughout the room. That's it. No announcements, no instructions. Just a shift in what people saw. The result? Soda sales dropped, water sales surged, and all of it happened without relying on anyone's willpower. This experiment reveals a deeper truth. Motivation is overrated. Your environment does more to shape your behaviour than you think. We often believe we need more discipline, more grit, but most of the time we just need to make the right choice, the easy one. Think about how much your surroundings drive your habits. If you see a cookie jar on the counter, you'll likely reach for it. If your phone is within arm's reach, you'll probably check it without thinking. These are not conscious decisions. They're responses to cues in your environment. So instead of fighting your environment, redesign it. Want to eat healthier? Leave fruit on the table and hide the junk food. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow. Want to stop checking your phone first thing in the morning? Leave it in another room overnight. Clear calls this choice architecture. It's about structuring your environment to nudge you toward better behaviour, not with willpower, but with visibility and convenience. He also introduces the concept of context-dependent habits. That means most of your habits are tied to specific locations and situations. You drink coffee in the kitchen, check your phone in the bathroom, or scroll TikTok in bed. These behaviours become tightly associated with those places, so if you want to break a bad habit, change the context. Rearrange your space. Associate different environments with different behaviours. You can even create zones in your home. A reading chair, a workout corner, a writing desk. The point is simple. Don't just try to be a better person in the same old setting. Instead, make the setting work for the kind of person you want to become. Because it's easier to grow when you're planted in the right environment. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. In the early 1970s, something unexpected happened. 2 US congressmen visiting troops in Vietnam discovered that over 15% of American soldiers were addicted to heroin. Further research revealed that nearly 1 in 5 had developed a serious habit. This was alarming, not just because of the addiction, but because at the time heroin was seen as a life sentence. Once addicted, it was believed you were hooked for life. But when those same soldiers returned home, 90% of them quit. No rehab, no treatment programs, just stopped. So what happened? James Clear uses this story to deliver a surprising truth. Environment, not willpower, is the real key to self-control. The soldiers didn't suddenly become stronger, they simply left the context where the habit had formed. In Vietnam, heroin was everywhere, cheap, easy to get, part of the daily rhythm. Back home, totally different environment, no cues, no triggers. It's a striking example of how self-control is often just a matter of removing temptation. The more you expose yourself to the cues that drive a habit, the harder it becomes to resist. But when those cues disappear, the craving often does too. The idea that the most disciplined people have some magical willpower the rest of us don't? It's a myth. What they've really done is design lives that don't constantly test their limits. They don't keep junk food in the house. They don't sleep with their phones beside them. They shape their environment so the path of least resistance naturally leads to better behaviour. Here's the key takeaway. It's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. So instead of asking, how do I stay strong, try asking, how can I make this temptation invisible? Want to stop eating sweets? Don't just resist the cookies, just don't buy them in the first place. Trying to cut back on social media? Log out, delete the apps, or move your phone out of reach. This isn't weakness, it's strategy. Because every habit begins with a cue. Remove the cue, and you disrupt the loop. It reveals a deeper truth about behaviour change. It's not about becoming tougher, it's about becoming smarter. The most effective form of self-control is not needing it. Part 3, the second law, make it attractive. Chapter 8, how to make a habit irresistible. In the 1940s, Dutch scientist Nico Tinbergen discovered something strange. He was studying baby birds, herring gulls, who instinctively peck at a red dot on their mother's beak when they want food. But when Tinbergen offered them fake cardboard beaks with bigger red dots, the chicks went wild. They pecked at the fakes even more than the real thing. He'd accidentally created what scientists call a supernormal stimulus, an exaggerated cue that triggers an even stronger response than nature intended. It's a perfect illustration of how our brains are wired to chase the most attractive option. The biggest reward, the fastest pleasure, the highest stimulation. If the goal is to build better habits, the key is to work with that wiring, to make those habits feel attractive and rewarding right from the start. Most of us think of habits as things we should do. Go to the gym, eat veggies, meditate. But our brains don't respond to should. They respond to desire. To make habits stick, you have to make them something you actually want to do. This leads us to a key concept, temptation bundling. Here's how it works. You pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. For example, only watch your favourite Netflix show while doing cardio. Only drink your favourite latte while answering work emails. Only listen to your favourite podcast while cleaning. Suddenly the dull or difficult habit becomes something you look forward to. You've bundled it with something rewarding. Clear also explores how our social environment affects what we find attractive. We imitate the habits of 3 groups of people: the close, family and friends; the many, peer groups; and the powerful, people we admire. If everyone around you is fit, chances are you'll want to be fit too. If your coworkers smoke during breaks, you might pick it up just to belong. This insight is powerful. It means one of the fastest ways to change your habits is to join a group where your desired behaviour is the norm. Want to get into running? Hang out with runners? Want to write more? Find a writing group. We crave acceptance, and we're wired to adopt habits that help us fit in. So how do you make a habit attractive? Use temptation bundling. Join communities where your habit is the standard. Reframe the habit so it feels like a privilege, not a chore. Because here's the truth. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about wanting to do the right thing, and the more attractive you make a habit, the more likely it is to stick. Chapter 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. In the 1960s, a Hungarian man named Laszlo Polgar wrote a letter to a woman named Clara. He had a bold proposition: marry him and help raise children who would prove a radical theory, that genius isn't born, it's trained. They chose chess as their test. Laszlo and Clara homeschooled their daughters, surrounded them with chess books, entered them in elite tournaments, and made chess the centre of their daily lives. The result? All three daughters became chess masters, including Judith Polgar, who became the strongest female chess player in history. This isn't just about chess. It's about the massive influence our social groups have on our habits, often more than we realise. We are social creatures. Whether we like it or not, we tend to mirror the behaviours of three groups: the close, family and friends; the many, the people around us; the powerful, those we look up to. The closer we feel to someone, the more likely we are to imitate them. If your spouse exercises, you probably will too. If your friends eat healthy, drink less, or read more, chances are those behaviours will rub off on you. It's not conscious, it's contagious. Clear highlights that one of the most effective ways to build better habits is to surround yourself with people who already practice them. Want to drink less? Hang out with non-drinkers? Want to write every day? Spend time with people who do? Want to save money? Join a group focused on frugality. When a behaviour becomes part of the group norm, you don't just want to do it, you feel a pull to fit in. Belonging is a powerful motivator, but there's a flip side. If your environment is full of bad influences, people who smoke, procrastinate, complain, or avoid growth, it's much harder to swim against the current. We all want to be accepted, and often we conform, even if it means keeping habits we know are harmful. That's why Clear emphasises, choose your tribe wisely. If your desired behaviour is normal in the group, sticking to it becomes easy. If it's discouraged or ridiculed, it feels impossible. The takeaway is clear. One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behaviour is the normal behaviour. In the end, change isn't just about what you do, it's about who you're doing it with. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. In 2012, James Clear found himself in a smoky apartment in Istanbul, surrounded by a group of locals, and one guy from Maine named Mike. As they chatted, Clear learned something surprising. Every person in the room had once been a heavy smoker, some up to a pack a day, but half of them had managed to quit. One of them, Mike, swore by a book called Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. It wasn't a book about discipline or punishment. It was about shifting your beliefs, realising that you didn't actually want to smoke, that the craving was a lie, that you could rewrite the story. Breaking a bad habit starts with understanding what's really driving it beneath the surface. Clear explains that every behaviour, especially the ones we repeat, has a reason, a trigger, a hidden reward. If you keep checking your phone, biting your nails, or stress eating late at night, it's not random. Your brain is trying to solve a problem, even if it's just boredom, stress, or discomfort. So how do you fix a bad habit? You start by asking, what am I really craving? What problem am I trying to solve? Maybe you check social media not because it's fun, but because you're lonely. Maybe you eat when you're not hungry, just anxious. The habit is the surface. The craving is the root. Clear introduces a powerful mental model called reframing. Instead of telling yourself, I have to quit this, you shift to, I don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't serve me. This mindset puts you in control. You're not a victim of your habits. You're the architect of them. Another key tactic? Make the habit unattractive. Habits stick when they're tied to a craving. If you change the story around the craving and see the behaviour as repulsive instead of rewarding, it starts to lose its grip. He gives examples. A smoker who redefines cigarettes as poison, not pleasure. A procrastinator who pictures the guilt and stress that always follows. A nail biter who sees bitten nails as dirty and embarrassing, not satisfying. When the craving fades, the habit becomes easier to let go. Ultimately, Clear reminds us that breaking bad habits isn't about willpower, it's about clarity. Understand the cue, understand the craving, rewrite the story, change the association. Because when you uncover the why, you finally take back control of the what. Part 4. The third law, make it easy. Chapter 11. Walk slowly but never backward. On the first day of class, photography professor Jerry Yulesman made an unusual decision. He split his students into 2 groups. One group would be graded on quantity. Take 100 photos, get an A. The other group? Quality. Produce just 1 perfect photo to earn the same grade. The result was surprising. The best photos came from the quantity group. Why? Because they were doing the work, experimenting, learning from mistakes, getting better with every shot. Meanwhile, the quality group spent most of the semester theorizing, planning, and paralyzing themselves in pursuit of perfection. James Clear uses this story to drive home one of the most important lessons in the book. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to keep showing up. This is the heart of the third law, make it easy, because the truth is we often don't follow through because the bar is set too high. The action feels too big, too intimidating, so we wait and do nothing. Clear argues that real change doesn't come from massive heroic effort. It comes from repetition. And repetition is only possible when the habit feels easy enough to do consistently. He introduces a powerful principle: reduce the friction. Make habits so small and manageable that they're impossible to skip. Want to write more? Start with just 1 sentence a day. Want to work out? Just show up and do 1 push-up. Want to meditate? Try 60 seconds, not 20 minutes. This isn't laziness, it's momentum, because once you start, you're far more likely to keep going. Clear calls this idea decisive moments. These are small choices, like putting on your running shoes or opening your notebook, that set the direction for everything that follows. The action itself may be tiny, but the ripple effect is huge. And here's the key insight: standardize before you optimize. Before you worry about the best workout plan or the perfect productivity system, just get the reps in. Build the habit first, then refine it. Because the people who succeed aren't the ones who wait until they're ready. They're the ones who start, even if it's messy, even if it's small. In Clear's words, habits are not about having something. They are about becoming someone. And you become that person 1 simple, easy step at a time. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. In Guns, Germs and Steel, author Jared Diamond points out something that seems obvious, but holds surprising power. Continents have different shapes. Europe and Asia run east to west. The Americas run north to south. And that mattered. A lot. Why? Because when agriculture was spreading, it was far easier to farm across similar latitudes. Same climate, same crops, same seasonal rhythms. As a result, farming spread faster across Europe and Asia than in the Americas or Africa. James Clear uses this idea to make a key point about human behaviour. We naturally gravitate toward the path of least resistance. Whether it's crops spreading or habits forming, ease is everything. This is what he calls the law of least effort, and it's the heart of the third law: make it easy. We tend to choose behaviours that require the least amount of energy, not because we're lazy, but because our brains are wired to conserve effort. It's survival, it's efficiency. And it means the easier a habit is, the more likely it is to stick. So the question is, how do you make good habits easier? Clear offers a powerful strategy. Reduce friction. Make the desired habit require less energy. Remove obstacles. Lower the activation threshold. Examples: want to eat healthier? Chop veggies ahead of time. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow. Want to work out? Sleep in your gym clothes. At the same time, you can increase friction for bad habits. Log out of social media. Delete food delivery apps. Move the TV remote across the room. Another strategy Clear introduces is prime your environment. Design your surroundings to make the next good action obvious and easy. Want to start journaling? Leave your notebook open on the table. Want to stop snacking at night? Keep the kitchen dark and closed. Want to start meditating? Set out your cushion before bed. It's about removing every excuse, every barrier, every tiny moment of hesitation that could stop you from doing what you already want to do. Because here's the truth. It's not enough to want good habits. You have to engineer them, and that means making them easier than the alternative. The most successful people don't always have more discipline. They just have less friction. Their default settings lead to progress. So if you want to stick with a habit, don't make it hard. Make it easy. Make it obvious. And make it the most natural next step. Chapter 13. How to Stop Procrastinating. Twyla Tharp is one of the greatest choreographers of our time. Her success? It doesn't start with music or movement. It starts with a taxi. Every morning she wakes at 5:30, puts on her gym clothes, walks outside her Manhattan apartment and hails a cab to the gym. That's it. That's the ritual. She says, "The moment I tell the driver where to go, I've completed the ritual. It's not about working out. It's about making the first step automatic." This is the key lesson in Chapter 13, and the core of one of James Clear's most powerful techniques, the 2-minute rule. It goes like this. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. It sounds almost too simple, but that's exactly why it works. Want to start running? Just put on your shoes. Want to read more? Just open the book. Want to journal? Write 1 sentence. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to start. Clear explains that habits are not about finishing a marathon or writing a novel. They're about becoming the kind of person who shows up. Because once you start, momentum kicks in. The hardest part is often just beginning. This approach taps directly into the third law. Make it easy. And easy doesn't just mean effortless. It means accessible. The habit should be frictionless enough that it's easier to do it than not do it. Why does this work? Because it sidesteps the mental resistance that leads to procrastination. You're not committing to a full workout, just putting on your shoes. Not committing to reading a chapter, just turning 1 page. And most of the time, once you do that, you'll naturally keep going. You've lowered the barrier just enough to slip into the habit without needing motivation. Clear even reframes habits as gateway behaviours, small actions that lead to bigger ones. You might start by meditating for 2 minutes and end up doing 10. But the win isn't the duration, it's that you showed up. So if you've been struggling with inconsistency or putting things off, ask yourself, what's the 2-minute version of this habit? Shrink the habit until it fits your life, not the other way around. Because in the end, you don't need to be amazing to get started, but you do need to start to become amazing. Chapter 14. Make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In 1830, Victor Hugo had a problem. He'd promised his publisher a new book, but instead of writing, he spent the year partying, hosting guests, and avoiding the work. Frustrated, his publisher gave him a 6-month deadline, so Hugo took a drastic step. He gathered up all his clothes and locked them away, leaving himself with nothing to wear except a shawl. With no wardrobe fit for socializing, he stayed home and wrote like crazy. The result? The Hunchback of Notre Dame was finished 2 weeks early. What Hugo stumbled into is what James Clear calls a commitment device. a tool that helps you stick to your intentions by locking in future behaviour. It's a smart way to flip the script. Instead of just making good habits easy, make bad habits hard. If staying on track has been a struggle, the solution might not be more willpower. It might be building better barriers. So what exactly is a commitment device? It's a decision you make now that restricts your options later. You create friction for bad habits, or remove friction for good ones, by designing your future environment. Here are some examples. Put your phone in another room to avoid distractions. Delete delivery apps to avoid impulse ordering. Use automatic savings transfers to force better money habits. Install website blockers during work hours. When you do this, you're shaping the future before you get there. You're making the better path the default path. Clear also emphasizes the power of automation. The more you can outsource your habits to systems, the more reliable they become. Set up autopay on your bills. Schedule workouts in advance. Use calendar reminders. These are all forms of invisible commitment, systems that take over when your motivation fades. He explains, the ultimate way to lock in future behaviour is to automate it. This isn't just about productivity, it's about identity. When you design a life where the good habits are inevitable and the bad ones are inconvenient, you're creating an environment that works for you, even when you don't feel like working. In the end, building habits isn't just about grit or discipline, it's about strategy. It's about designing a system where success is the path of least resistance. So take a cue from Victor Hugo. Make it hard to fail, make it easy to win. Part 5, The Fourth Law, Make It Satisfying. Chapter 15, The Cardinal Rule of Behaviour Change. In the 1990s, public health worker Stephen Luby moved from Omaha to Karachi, Pakistan, one of the most densely populated and underdeveloped cities in the world. In the slums of Karachi there was no clean water, no trash pickup and no reliable medical care. Illness was rampant. But Luby wasn't there to build hospitals. He was there to change behaviour, and he did it with one simple intervention: soap. He partnered with a soap company to provide free bars of high-quality soap and taught people the value of hand washing, not just through lectures, but by showing them how to use the soap and explaining when and why it mattered. The result? Rates of diarrhea plummeted by 52%, pneumonia by 48%, skin infections by 35%. Why? Because the hand washing wasn't just useful, it was satisfying. The soap smelled good, lathered easily, and left people feeling clean. It felt rewarding. This is what James Clear calls the cardinal rule of behaviour change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. This is the fourth law: make it satisfying. Our brains are wired for instant feedback. Evolution didn't prepare us for long-term planning. It trained us to seek immediate gratification. That's why habits that feel good now, even if they hurt later, are hard to break. And why habits that are good in the long run, but feel hard in the moment, are tough to stick with. So how do you make good habits satisfying? Clear introduces a few tools. Reinforcement. Pair a habit with an instant reward. Not something massive, just something that creates a positive feeling. After working out, enjoy a smoothie. After studying, watch an episode of your favourite show. The point is to close the feedback loop so your brain learns to associate the habit with pleasure. Habit tracking. There's something deeply satisfying about checking a box or marking an X on a calendar. It creates a sense of progress, a visual signal that you're moving forward. That hit of dopamine keeps you coming back. Don't break the chain. Momentum matters. Once you have a streak going, you'll work hard to maintain it. Even if you do miss a day, Clear has one rule: never miss twice. Missing once is a mistake. Missing twice is the start of a new habit in the wrong direction. In the end, the habits that stick are the ones that feel good, immediately. It's not enough for them to be wise or beneficial. They have to be satisfying. So if you want to build a habit that lasts, don't just focus on what happens later. Make it feel good now. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. In 1993, a young stockbroker named Trent Dearsmid landed a job at a small bank in Abbotsford, Canada. He was just 23. Nobody expected much. But Trent had a secret weapon, a jar of paper clips. Each morning he placed 120 paper clips in a jar on his desk. Every time he made a sales call, he moved one to an empty jar. Clip by clip, call by call. By the end of the day, the jar was empty, and Trent had made 120 calls. Within 18 months, he was generating millions for the firm. His trick: tracking progress in a way he could see. James Clear calls this the paperclip strategy, and it's a key tactic for making habits stick. It all centres around one powerful idea: what gets measured gets managed. If you want a habit to become automatic, you need visible reinforcement, something to show you that you're showing up. Clear introduces the practice of habit tracking, using a calendar, notebook, or app to record your progress. Every time you complete a habit, you mark it down. 1 page read, 1 workout, 1 cold call. The benefit isn't just accountability, it's motivation. When you see a streak building, you want to keep it alive. It becomes a game, a challenge, a source of pride. Clear explains why this works so well. It's satisfying. You get a mini reward every time you check the box. It's visual. You can see your consistency grow. It's motivational. Missing a day stings and helps you course correct quickly. But there's one important rule: never miss twice. Missing once, life happens. But missing twice, that's the beginning of a new, bad habit. If you're too tired to run, take a walk. If you can't write a page, jot down a sentence. If you're too overwhelmed to clean, do 1 dish. The goal is to maintain momentum, even if the pace is slow. It's important not to obsess over tracking perfectly. Habit tracking is a tool, not the goal itself. When the system starts to feel like a chore, it's time to simplify. And here's a subtle but powerful insight. Recording a habit reinforces the identity of the person you're becoming. Every tally mark, every paper clip, every X on the calendar, it's proof that you're the kind of person who follows through. And that's the real win. Not just building a habit, but building belief in yourself. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner can change everything. In the 1970s, Harvard negotiator Roger Fisher proposed a chilling solution to nuclear war. He suggested that the President of the United States should carry the nuclear launch codes inside the chest of a volunteer. If the President ever wanted to push the button, he'd first have to kill that volunteer with his own hands. The point wasn't cruelty, it was accountability. Fisher believed that no leader should make a life-and-death decision without feeling the cost. It's a powerful way to show that. When the consequences of our actions are real, immediate and personal, we're far more likely to make better choices. That's the deeper function of the 4th law: make it satisfying. And one of the best tools for reinforcing good habits is having an accountability partner. An accountability partner is someone who sees your behavior, someone you report to, someone who notices if you do the thing and notices if you don't. Why does this work? Because we care deeply about how others perceive us. We want to be reliable, honest, and competent, especially when someone is watching. And when we know we'll have to explain ourselves, we're far more likely to follow through. Clear introduces the idea of a habit contract, a written agreement you make with yourself and others that outlines the habit you want to build and the consequences if you don't. For example, if I skip the gym, I owe my friend $10. If I don't finish my draft by Friday, I lose my weekend plans. If I eat fast food, I have to post it publicly. The consequences don't have to be severe, just enough to make inaction feel uncomfortable. And this is the secret. What is immediately punished is avoided. Without real consequences, it's easy to skip one day, then another. But when failure is visible, it becomes less likely. That's why even small forms of public commitment, telling a friend, joining a group, setting up a check-in, can have a huge impact. They create just enough pressure to keep you honest. Of course, the goal isn't fear or shame, it's support, encouragement, and most importantly, follow through. Because good habits don't just need structure, they need stakes. So if you've been going it alone and struggling to stay consistent, maybe it's time to bring someone else in. Someone who'll hold you to your word, someone who'll make sure you show up. Because the difference between I'll try and I gave my word can change everything. Part 6. Advanced Tactics. How to go from being merely good to being truly great. Chapter 18. The Truth About Talent. Michael Phelps and Iham El Guerrouj were both Olympic legends. One dominated the pool, the other the track. On paper, they couldn't be more different. Phelps stands 6 feet 4 inches with a long torso and short legs, a build made for gliding through water. El Guerrouj is 5 feet 9 inches, with long legs and a short torso, ideal for middle distance running. And yet, they both wear the same inseam size. It's a striking example of how your genes matter, but how you use them matters more. It all begins with a crucial insight. Habits are easier when they align with your natural abilities. It's not about being born a genius. It's about finding the right field, the one where your talents give you an edge. Clear calls this finding your fit. Instead of forcing yourself into a mould, shape your habits around your strengths. A naturally analytical person might thrive with budgeting or writing. A naturally social person might build habits around group workouts or accountability calls. If a habit feels impossible, it might not be the habit. It might be the context. And when you find something you're naturally inclined to enjoy or excel at, consistency becomes easy. He also talks about personality traits and how they affect behaviour. Some people crave novelty, others prefer routine, some are risk-takers, others are planners. Understanding your personality helps you pick habits that stick. And the best part, you don't need to be good at everything, just great at the right things. So how do you find your fit? Clear offers 3 strategies. Explore broadly. Try different things and see what comes naturally. Pay attention to flow. What tasks make time disappear? What feels effortless? Double down on what feels easy. When a habit feels fun or frictionless, it's a clue you're on the right path. He also introduces the idea of the Goldilocks rule, the sweet spot where a habit is challenging, but not overwhelming. Not too hard, not too easy, just enough to keep you engaged and growing. Because success isn't just about effort, it's about alignment. In the end, the message is simple. Genes do not determine your destiny, they determine your areas of opportunity. So don't waste time trying to win in someone else's lane. Find the game you were built to play and build your habits to match. Chapter 19. The Goldilocks Rule. In 1955, a 10-year-old boy got a job at Disneyland selling guidebooks. A year later, he was working at the magic shop, learning tricks, cracking jokes, and slowly falling in love, not with magic, but with performance. That boy was Steve Martin. His path to stardom wasn't fast. For years he performed in tiny clubs, sometimes to empty rooms. He wasn't a natural. He wasn't an overnight success. He was just consistent. Always pushing just a little further, stretching his comfort zone, but never too far. This approach captures the essence of the Goldilocks rule. The rule is simple. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. James Clear explains that the key to long-term motivation isn't hype or hustle, it's engagement. When a habit is too easy, we get bored. Too hard, we get overwhelmed. But when it's just challenging enough, we enter a magical state of flow, and that's where real progress happens. It's the sweet spot where your brain is focused, alert, and fully locked in. So how do you apply the Goldilocks rule? Let's say you're building a habit of writing. Don't shoot for 2,000 perfect words. Start with 300 messy ones, then push to 500, then 800. Always stretch, but just enough to stay challenged. This is also why plateaus happen. As a habit becomes easy, it becomes less engaging. You do the reps, but you're no longer improving. To stay motivated, you need to add challenge back in. New goals, new variations, new benchmarks. But Clear warns, challenge alone isn't enough. If the results aren't visible, you'll still feel stuck. That's why feedback is essential. You need to see yourself getting better, faster, stronger, sharper. Progress fuels motivation. It's what keeps you coming back. And here's the truth. Even with the Goldilocks rule, you won't always feel motivated. Boredom will creep in. Mastery by nature is repetitive. The best performers in the world, they're not just talented. They're the ones who learn to love the monotony, who show up even when it's not exciting, because they know consistency beats intensity. It's a straightforward but profound message. You have to fall in love with boredom. Because the secret to staying motivated isn't finding something new every time. It's learning how to keep going even when it's not new. That's the Goldilocks zone. Just enough difficulty to grow, just enough reward to stay hooked, and just enough commitment to show up day after day. Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. Habits are powerful. They free up mental energy, build momentum, and turn hard work into second nature. But James Clear ends Atomic Habits with a warning. What makes habits powerful also makes them dangerous. In this final chapter, he explores the dark side of good habits. What happens when we become so efficient, so automatic, that we stop paying attention, when habit turns into autopilot? Think of a chess master. Before they can play at a high level, they need to internalize the basics, how the pieces move, common patterns, opening strategies. But once those basics become automatic, mastery begins, and yet that same automation can lead to complacency. As Clear writes, the upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside is that we stop thinking. You stop noticing tiny mistakes. You assume you're improving just because you're repeating, but repetition isn't progress. It's just reinforcement. If you're not careful, you'll get really good at doing things the wrong way. Clear shares research showing that after people master a skill, performance often plateaus, or even declines slightly. Why? Because they stop receiving feedback. They stop adjusting. They stop growing. So how do you avoid this trap? The answer is reflection and review. You need moments to pause, to check in, to ask what's working, what's slipping, where am I coasting? How can I stretch again? Clear recommends building in regular reflection, weekly, monthly, or yearly. These check-ins give you a chance to course correct before a tiny flaw becomes a major limitation. And here's the final insight. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. Habits alone make you efficient, but only intentional effort makes you excellent. If you want to keep improving, you have to keep refining. So while habits are the foundation of greatness, reflection is the fuel that keeps greatness from fading. The journey doesn't end when a habit is formed. That's when it begins. Because becoming the person you want to be isn't a one-time shift. It's a lifetime of small, conscious adjustments, powered by habits, guided by awareness, and shaped by intention. Conclusion: the secret to results that last. There's an old Greek parable called the Sorite's Paradox. It goes like this. Can one coin make a person rich? Obviously not. But what if you add another and another? At what point does the pile become wealth? That's the essence of atomic habits. Not about huge changes, not about sudden transformation, but about the power of small things, repeated relentlessly. James Clear closes the book with a powerful reminder: every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. One workout won't change your body. One page won't make you wise. One meditation won't make you calm. But over time, like drops in a bucket, these small acts compound. You don't need a massive overhaul, you need a system, a rhythm, a way of living that favours improvement as even by 1%. Because the magic isn't in a single atomic habit. It's in the accumulation, the stacking, the consistency. And here's the key takeaway. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. So don't underestimate the power of one small choice, done today, then again tomorrow, then again the next day. That's how habits create identity. That's how identity creates results. And that's how results last. Thank you for joining us tonight at the Sleepless Library. We hope these quiet thoughts helped you drift a little closer to rest. Sleep well.